So once you're logging to the AWS console that you have, you can just go to VPC by typing VPC here. Okay, so you will get isolated cloud resources when you select VPC. So just select this and we will be welcomed to the VPC management console. So this is the place where all the magic actually happens. So AWS provides us a very good user-friendly interface to create VPCs, and that is what we will be checking right now. So here you have a lot of options here, like your VPC, subnets, route tables, internet gateways, and all the things that you can create from this management console. But the thing that we are going to create is a VPC. So you can just click on your VPCs. And when you create your account, this comes with a default VPC, and VPC-F8888A90 is my default VPC. And the CIDR block that has been associated by default is 172.31.0.0/16. Okay, so if I have to create a VPC, then I have to just click on this create VPC button, and here it will ask me for a couple of options. Okay, so the first thing is we have to provide it a name. So I'll give new VPC. Okay, and the CIDR block, actually what we had already discussed was the range of the CIDR block that you can provide is going to be between 16 and 28. Okay, so I can provide it 16 right now. So 10.0.0.0/16, and no IPv6 CIDR block, so I don't want to give anything. And the tenancy that you see here, this will decide whether all the instances that you're going to create here, the EC2 instances, will go as default or it will go into the dedicated. We don't want any dedicated instance right now, so we will be selecting default. And if you want to read about this, you can click on info here. So here it tells us that you can run instances in your VPC on single tenant dedicated hardware. Okay, or dedicated hardware. So select dedicated to ensure that instances launched in this VPC are dedicated tenancy instances, regardless of the tenancy attributes specified at launch. So even though you specify any type of tenancy, the default actually will go as now as if you have selected dedicated, then it will go to the dedicated tenancy. Okay, and select default to ensure that instances launched in the VPC use the tenancy attribute specified at launch. So regardless of what you have specified in launch, if you have specified dedicated here, it will go to the dedicated one because the default tenancy for the VPC is set to dedicated. Okay, so this is one thing that is very important for you to understand, and if you don't want to incur huge costs, don't select dedicated in the beginning while creating the VPC. Okay, we may never know what is our current requirement. Okay, and if you have the specific requirement and your architect already has told you, or you are the architect and you know that every instance that you're going to get for your VPC is going to be dedicated, then please go ahead and make a decision and use this tenancy. But if you don't have any clue regarding what type of instances are you going to host later on in the future, then just select default. Okay, and I just don't want to give any other tag. The tag is already specified name, and the name that I had given was my new VPC, and I don't need to add any more tags. So the one thing that you need to be very clear is you have to specify between 16 and 28. So if I go to this website, IP address calculator guide, and if I supply this CIDR block that I'm going to use, /16, and if I hit calculate, it will tell me that there are total number of IPs that you are going to get is 65,536, but the first one will start from 10.0.0.0 and the last IP will be 10.0.255.255. Okay, and this actually we can divide into multiple CIDR blocks. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to do is just click on create VPC. So once you have created the VPC, you will get a VPC ID. Okay, so this will be mapped with your name. And if you can see here, the state is actually available, DNS host names are disabled, DNS resolution is enabled, and the default tenancy that we have is default. The DHCP option is already set, and the route and the network ACL is already been created. So these two will be created by default. So these are default route tables and the default NACLs, or the network access control list. I can go here and right click on this one and see. So the local zone that I have, I think the target and the destination will be set to the CIDR in the route table. So if you see here, if I go to the routes, so see, as I told you in the diagram also before, the destination will be 10.0.0.0/16 and the target will be local. Okay, so it will point to itself, to the same VPC. Okay, so here you can see the IPv4 CIDR is this one, 0.0.0/16, and we don't have any IPv6 CIDRs. Okay, so if I want to take action, so I can actually edit CIDRs, I can create flow logs. As I told you, you can send it to CloudWatch or you can send it to S3. You can also edit DNS host names and DNS resolution as well. You can manage the tag and you can delete it as well. So if I click on edit CIDR, so if I want to give another CIDR block, I can just choose 10.1.0.0/16, because when I showed you here, these are the two things that are going to change. So the last two numbers that are going to change. Okay, and you cannot have one more CIDR block which is actually trying to bifurcate the first CIDR that you have. Okay, so you cannot have this. So the only way that we are going to have it is like this, 10.1.0.0/16. Okay, so once I have this, I can just click on save and I can create this. If I want, I can create a few more, like I can create up to a maximum of 5, I think. So this is the way you can add more CIDRs. So this becomes your primary CIDR and this becomes your secondary CIDR. And this was the part that I wanted to show you. I'll not add any more CIDRs because this is sufficient for us. I'll just remove this and I'll just close this. So I don't want to add it. And the thing about CIDRs, actually, the IPv6 CIDRs, you can create a new one, but I don't want to have any IPv6 CIDRs as of now. So, but if you are interested, you can just click on add new IPv6 CIDR and you can choose Amazon provided CIDR block, or you can have a IPv6 CIDR block owned by me and you can choose a pool. Amazon already provides you a pool of CIDR blocks, so you can choose and you can just click on select CIDR and create it. But I will not create it right now. So you can just close it. So the default CIDR that I had, I did not give any name to this one. I can just give it a default name. Okay, so default VPC, just for clarity. So this is my default VPC and this is my new VPC that we just now created. Okay, so congratulations, you have created your first VPC now, and the CIDR block that you have associated is 10.0.0.0/16. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to create subnets. So click on subnets on the left hand side below your VPC, you will find subnets. So this is the default VPC subnet. You can see here it's written default VPC. We don't want to disturb this. We have to create our own subnets for the new one that we have created. So how we can create it? We can just click on create subnet and we can create a subnet here. I'll just write the name subnet A public. The VPC that I want to choose is this one, my new VPC. Availability zone is AP South 1A. Okay, so I can give the CIDR block now 10.0.0.0/24. So this exactly comes between the CIDR block that I have /16/28. So this should be sufficient for me. So just you're going to create on this one, click on create. This should be created. Well and good. Congratulations. And now we are going to create one more. So it will be subnet B public, and I'll choose the VPC again, and this one will be 10.0.1.0/24, making sure that they don't collide between each other. I'll just create one, and I'll create one more subnet that I have. So it will be subnet C public, and this will be in VPC, and I will make this inside AP South 1B. Okay, so two subnets, I have provided it in one availability zone and the other one I'm going to provide it in 1B. So this will be 10.0.16.0/24. Okay, so the first one was 0, the second one was 1, the third one was 16. So now this is also created. So 251 IPs, 251 IPs and 251 IPs. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the private subnets. So subnet, and this one will be 10.0.32.0/24. So this is also fine. So these are not colliding with anyone. So we have the private subnet and 3 public subnets. Now I can go ahead and create one more, and the VPC will be new, and this will be the second AZ, and I'll give it 10.0. Okay, let's suppose I give 32.0/24. Let's see what happens. Okay, this will overlap the existing CIDR. Okay, so if I give 16, it will overlap the existing CIDR. Okay, so I have already given 32. So if suppose it starts from this, so if suppose my CIDR actually started from this, how you can calculate is /24. Okay, calculate this. So the last IP will end at 32.255. Okay, so we have to create something after this. So what I can do is I can create 33. Okay, 33.0/24. It will get created. Yes. So every time that you feel like you are going to crash on some of the subnets that you've already created, just look at this IP CIDR block that you already have and look at the last IP that you have created, and you can give like one value after this. So like after 32 I have given 33, so that also works, so not a problem because it falls under the same range between 255 to 255, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so now as you can see here, 251, 251. So every time actually we wanted to calculate /24, we always imagine that we'll get 256 IPs, but we are getting 251 IPs. So I hope you remember we already had discussed this before, that AWS itself reserves 5 IP addresses, and it only gives us -5 IPs based on the CIDR value that we have, and those will be only usable hosts, and the other 5 will not be usable. So if you haven't gone through that session, then please go through that session as well. I have provided the link in the description as well, so don't worry about that. It's very simple. So just remember for now that anytime that you have to decide on creating CIDRs or decide on creating subnets and assign CIDRs, you must remember that 5 IPs from that list will not be usable. And the way I actually decide how I want to create subnet is basically like, let's suppose I created a VPC with CIDR block of 10.0.0.0/16. Then what I can do is I have the flexibility to now create my CIDR blocks for the subnets that I want within the availability that I want from any possible value between 16 and 28. Okay, so the first subnet that I wanted to create was subnet A pub, and the CIDR block that I wanted to create was 10.0.0.0/24. Okay, and that actually gives me 256 IPs, and that is fine for me. Okay, so if suppose I want to create the next one, and I can basically go here and I can just paste it here and calculate what is going to be the first and the last value of the CIDR block. So if I have the first IP as 10.0.0.0 and the last IP is 255, I can anyways change the second value of this and create a second CIDR. So I will go ahead and change the second value as 1, and I can create another 256. So if I take this again and I try to calculate the value for the first and the last IP, so here also I get 256 IPs, and it starts from 10.0.1.0 and ends with 10.0.1.255. So I will create the second subnet that I have for the public one with 10.0.16.0/24. So let's suppose I have this IP for the CIDR block, then I can just go ahead and paste it here. And if this was my CIDR block and I had to create any third CIDR, I can actually create it from 10.0.17 or 15, or it depends on me. It should not be like 10.0.16.1 or something. Okay, it cannot be like that. It cannot be between 0 and 255. So the next value that I wanted to give for the CIDR block was for the private one. So I plan to give it like 10.0.32.0/24. So if suppose I calculate this again, so if I just paste it here, the next value that I wanted to give was, the first value that I got here was 10.0.32.0. So the last IP that I'm getting is 10.0.24.255 because we have only 256 IPs. So the last range will be 255, and then the CIDR block actually changes. So I cannot have something like 10.0.32.2 as one of the CIDRs because it will not work. Okay, so for that reason itself I chose 10.0.33.0. Okay, so let's suppose I wanted to give you the same example here. So I I already told you that I chose 10.0.33.0/24 and it worked for me. And just for your satisfaction, if you want to know whether this works or not, if I have to choose between 10.0.32.5 and I'll try to create a subnet, just see, okay, what happens. So I have to create a subnet here. I'll choose 10.0.32.5. Okay, 6, 24, doesn't matter. Try to create this, it will not. So it must be a valid CIDR because /24 already covers 0 to 255 IPs. And then if I wanted to create one like 33, as it is already created, it will tell me that the CIDR block is going to overlap. So now if I want, I can create a 34. Yes, it will not throw me any errors. If I want to create, I can create 31. It will not throw me any error. Between 0 to 255, as many numbers are there, I can create one because my CIDR block actually allows it. My VPC CIDR block actually allows me to, but I cannot overlap two CIDR blocks which are already created, and I cannot bifurcate both of them by creating one more. So that is not advisable. So that is why you cannot create. So while creating, you can prepare an Excel sheet like me, what I have created, and you can actually make a list of all the CIDRs that you want, and you can actually determine how many host count that you want. And remember this thing, that this will basically be 251. So it will be 251. It will not be 256 because 5 IPs are already reserved. So this will be the actual host count. So this will be actual. So this is the actual host count. So don't worry about this. So you have to remember that even though your host count remains 256, your actual host count that will be usable is 251. So you can see all the information that you want here for the VPC, but the additional information that you can also watch is for your network access control list. So here what happens is, as I already told you before, that a network access control list will act as a security group for your subnets, isn't it? So you can see the subnet associations here. You can see associated with 5 subnets. So when you create a subnet, it gets associated with your default NACL or the network access control list. And you can see the subnet associations here. So you will find that all the subnets that you have created, both private and public, are already associated to this network access control list. And now coming back to this once again, if you go to the subnets, so if I click on this one, yeah, now you're able to see the second VPC that we have created. So you can just click on this and you will only see the subnets that are associated to the newly created VPC. And you might tell me that, Pythoholic, we have discussed all of this. This is well and good. We have created the VPC and the subnet. You told that there's my public subnet and these two are my private subnet, but I didn't find any difference between both of them. We created them the same way. So first of all, I want to assure you that we will be covering this. And I have already told you before, a subnet which actually has a route to the internet gateway is considered to be a public subnet, and the private routes to the local VPC. Okay, so this is the the main difference that you need to remember, and that is what we will be setting up in the sessions to come. For now, we are just going to focus on the VPC and subnet part. So we have done that. We have created the subnet and we have created the VPC. So this will be it for the demo for today. And I know that some of the people actually fear creating these VPCs and subnets, thinking that they might incur a huge amount of money for their creation in the free account as well, in the free tier account as well. But don't worry about that. For creation, you don't need to pay anything. Only for the resource usage, you're going to pay. So don't worry about that. And you can just create it and delete it. That's what I'm going to do right now. So don't worry about that. Create your free tier account, start practicing. This is how you're going to get the hands-on experience on how we are actually creating VPCs and subnets and all the other things that we are doing. And the next thing that we wanted to do was just click on these, go to actions and delete subnets. Yes. Are you sure that you want to delete these subnets? Yes, I want to delete them. Just click on delete. Yes. And if suppose you want to delete the VPC and you're scared that you might incur some of the cost, then you can just go ahead and click on my VPC or select my VPC or the one that you have created and go to actions and delete the VPC. So just type delete and make sure you have deleted the one that you have recently created, not the default one, because you might have some running instances there. So anyways, it will tell you that you cannot delete it, but make sure that you don't delete these things. Okay, so just the one that you have created newly, delete and just type confirm, delete, then just click on delete again. Yes, now the VPC that we had created is now deleted. The subnets that we had created is also deleted. We have cleaned up everything. So we don't have to worry about anything right now.